The Chicago White Sox took a big left-handed pitcher in the first round who throws heat. On the same day, a new report has the Sox wanting to trade their all-star pitcher, who's a big left-handed pitcher who throws heat. Let's discuss if the Sox just drafted Garrett Crochet's replacement next on Lockdown White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of Southside Showdown, part of the Fansided Network. You could check out my written content at SouthsideShowdown.com. And also, I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Also, follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Well, USA Today's Bob Nightengale reported yesterday that the front office still wants to trade all-star pitcher Garrett Crochet before the deadline. Not the greatest news. But the good news is the Sox may have drafted a pitcher who can eventually replace him in Hagen Smith. I'll discuss what the big left-handed flamethrower brings to the club, and if this is another clue that the Sox will trade Crochet before the deadline, or just a coincidence that the Sox made in the first segment. The Sox did pass on some bats that could be impactful at the big league level, so I'll discuss in the second segment if the team will regret passing on 3 prospects they were linked to. And then finally, I'll discuss the 2 players the Sox selected in the second round. Basically, that'll cover for the Minor League Monday report. This episode of Locked On White Sox is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay could make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. The Sox drafting Arkansas pitcher Hagen Smith with the number 5 overall pick is not an indication they're trading Garrett Crochet. But it sure feels like they drafted his replacement. He's a big left-handed pitcher, much like Crochet, throws hard like Crochet, and comes from the SEC, like Crochet. While the Sox needed an impact bat, this is a good pick for the Sox to make because it represents that the White Sox have an organizational vision, and that is one that is going to draft and develop pitching. And that's a good thing considering how this franchise does not spend much on pitching, and ownership is loath to put any commitment to contract years beyond the 6 years of club control that is built in with a young player reaching the big leagues. Plus, it sounds like the Sox have at least profile high in the draft. They took Noah Schultz 2 years back, who's a big left-handed pitcher with a 3/4 arm delivery, and now Hagen Smith. Now, granted, Noah Schultz is more of the size of Randy Johnson, where Hagen Smith is more, he's 6'3", got a big frame, but they both throw with the 3/4 arm delivery. Well, that should be lefty. Sorry. This organization might be doing things right for a change. Plus, Smith's arrival to the big leagues and his potential to be a frontline pitcher matches up better with the rebuild than Crochet. So having him in the team's back pocket does provide mitigation if the team does choose to trade him, as Bob Nightengale has reported. So first, let's get to that report, and then let's discuss what Smith brings to the table. And also, if I sound like I'm shouting or screaming, I am battling an ear infection. So yes, the plague that I've been dealing with has gone into an inner ear infection. I don't think the antibiotics are working. My hearing is down. Everything. I'm just a mess. So if I sound like I'm shouting, it's because I have no inner monologue volume right now. But Bob has a good relationship with the Sox ownership and management. He's also got a great relationship there. So when he reports something, it's pretty much close to gospel. And in his Sunday notebook, he had this nugget on Crochet. The San Diego Padres recently made an offer for Chicago White Sox ace Garrett Crochet, but it was quickly dismissed. While rival GMs are uncertain now whether Crochet will be dealt, the White Sox still fully intend to move him. He then, Nightengale later adds, the White Sox are insisting on Yankees prize prospect Spencer Jones in a deal for Crochet. Quote, things happen that are outside of our control, end quote, Jones said. Jones says he's flattered the White Sox and other teams keep asking for him. In an SNY report has the White Sox also wanting pitching prospect Chase Hampton. So that would be the Sox asking for 2 top 100 prospects and the Yankees' second and third best prospect. Jones is at Double-A. He's not having the greatest start, the greatest first half, but he can still crush the ball. Hampton just started throwing competitively this season after a shoulder issue, but he projects to be like Drew Thorpe, if I'm reading the scouting report correctly. And since the Sox took 2 pitchers with 2 of their 3 top picks last night, the only other way to add an impactful potential impact bat is by being able to add a George Wolko-like prospect today. One who's at high school or JUCO that can be convinced with an overslotted bonus to skip college. But the Sox sounds like have already spent a decent amount of their bonus pool already on their first 3 picks. And I'll get into that more in the final segment. But the other way they're going to be able to get potential impact bats is they're going to have to trade one of their assets. And their highest asset right now is Garrett Crochet. But man, could you imagine if the Sox extend Crochet and then have a rotation, say 2 years of him, Schultz, a top 20 prospect, Drew Thorpe, who pitched well again on Saturday against the Pirates, Smith, and then Jonathan Cannon. He did give up 4 runs in a rare long relief appearance on Friday, as the Sox only had Crochet throw like 30 pitches. But Cannon is showing he can at least be a solid number 4 or number 5 starter. And the Sox still have backup options with all their young arms this team has in their system. And I've been discussing it a lot. But if you want a refresher off the top of my head, Mason Adams, Kai Bush, Jairo Iriarte, Jake Eder, Grant Taylor, Nick Nascerini, if he can ever figure out his command issues. Those are young arms that can also be moved for bats too once the Sox are competitive. Or better yet, they can be put to use in the bullpen, a cheap bullpen. How about that? An effective cheap bullpen. Why don't we do that instead of giving up limited financial resources like the Sox did during the last time they were competitive earlier this decade? Remember that? Because that was the one thing that sunk the Sox last rebuild. They took those limited financial resources and invested in veteran bullpen arms that didn't work out. And in turn, the Sox couldn't sign a long-term solution at second base or right field. All right, so let's get on to what Smith brings to the table. This is what scouting director Mike Shirley had to say about Hagen. Quote, he has a plus fastball that can reach 100 miles per hour and a slider that is also a plus pitch. He does have a splitter that he can mix in, and that is why there's a belief he can be a frontline starter. They'll have to be upgraded, and probably another pitch needs to be developed. Actually, I'm sorry, that's not the quote. The quote did not copy over. I apologize. This is what he brings to the table. My bad. All right, I'll get to the quote in a second. My notes were all messed up, so I apologize for that. What does Hagen have? Yeah, he's got a plus fastball, plus slider, and a splitter. Obviously, he's going to have to work with pitching guru Brian Bannister. But, they have a forward-thinking mind running their pitching in Brian Bannister. They finally have a profile of who they want to draft at the top of the draft. Shortstop, which they've done with Colson Montgomery and Jacob Gonzalez, or a big left-handed flamethrower like Garrett Crochet or Noah Schultz, and now Hagen Smith. And also, if you want production examples, the guy had 360 career Ks at Arkansas. That's a program record. Also, according to Sox Machine, he faced number 1 overall pick Travis Bazzana, and Bazzana went 0 for 3 with 3 Ks. Number 6 pick Jack Caglione went 0 for 3. Number 12 pick Braden Montgomery went 0 for 3 with 3 Ks against Hagen Smith. And then Vinny Duber, here's the quotes from Sox scouting director Mike Shirley. He was at Hagen Smith's 17K game versus Oregon State. Quote, it's the best performance I've ever seen from a college pitcher. Ever. I've been doing this a long time. He took Oregon State for a ride, and I've never seen a college pitcher take any lineup for. It was the most dominating stuff I've ever seen. I've been scouting. He has the type of weapons he can put away. He can make you uncomfortable. As the great Jim Tomei said, I may need to take a day off when we face this guy. This guy is real, end quote. And that's from Vinny Duber, CHGO, White Sox beat reporter at Vinny Duber. Smith was ranked as the 5th best prospect according to MLB Pipeline, and ESPN's draft expert Kylie McDaniel ranked him 4th. Both had him as the best pitching prospect in the draft. And that slider and fastball gives him a chance to get to the big league soon. Maybe late 2025, but he definitely could be developed like the Sox developed Chris Sale and Crochet by having him start in the bullpen. And look, I'm all for that. Excuse me there. Like I said, I'm sorry for the last week. I've just been battling this cold and this ear infection. All right. Well, like I said, I think Smith taking him with the number 5 overall pick was a good move by the Sox. But while Smith sounds like a stud, will the Sox regret passing on 3 bats in the draft they were linked to that project to be impactful at the big league level? Let's discuss next on Locked On White Sox. This episode of Locked On White Sox is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rival cities. With hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might also just find your perfect stay even in your baseball rival city. After the All-Star break, the Sox are going to Kansas City. Why not head out there, check out the Negro League Museum, get some barbecue, cross off Kauffman Stadium off the list of stadiums you have visited. Say you've not been to Fenway Park. Sox play there in early September, so plenty of time to plan a trip and use Booking.com to find a place to lay your head. From hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel. This MLB season, the right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rival. Book today on Booking.com, on the site, or in the Booking.com app. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, h-vac, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support from an industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouses.com's free TradeMaster program. Every TradeMaster gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM. Order plumbing, h-vac, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. And are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn on the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. A free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And it's the All-Star break for the White Sox. They won't be back in action until this Friday against the Kansas City Royals. First pitch on the 19th is at 7:10 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter, battling an inner ear infection and a cold. I'm sorry I sound like death. I'm trying my best to get through this. I think I'm going to go to urgent care again after the show. But I want to thank you for sticking with me, and thank you for making the show your first listen. Again, lots of great White Sox podcasts out there. I just always ask that you make me the first listen. Now, look, I can talk about the current team, but they just got swept by the Pittsburgh Pirates, and they're the first team to lose 70 or more games before the All-Star break. So I don't really want to totally depress you. And how about it just feels like more wash, rinse, repeat. Sox lose because the defense is bad. The bullpen can't hold a lead. The offense can't score enough runs. It's everything awful that we are experiencing this year. Instead, let's discuss if the Sox might regret going with pitching instead of hitting with the number 5 overall pick. Because again, this is one of the few times the Sox will be picking in the top 10. It's because of the new lottery rules. The Sox will not have a top 9 pick next year. That's why I keep saying there is no consolation prize for being historically bad. And that's not to say the Sox can't get a good prospect if they're picking number 10 next year. Like Trout was drafted in the 20s. Texas A&M's Braden Montgomery, he was thought highly of, but fell to 12 this year because of an injury. So you could still get a good player. It's nice to be able to shop from the top 5 talented player section instead of a little bit lower in the bar, in the bin. Again, the Sox just drafted the best pitching prospect in all of the draft because they were at number 5 overall. Next year, they're probably not going to get that shot. The Sox system, though, is thin on bats that project to either be impactful or at least can contribute at the major league level. And the Sox had a chance to add an potential impact bat, and baseball observers are questioning if the Sox will regret that. And I'm going to say no, because the Sox have established a process that makes sense and they feel comfortable with, and that the organization actually has a track record of it working out. And plus, you can never have enough pitching. And if the Sox somehow mitigate trading Crochet by sending him to, say, the Orioles, the Yankees, Brewers, or Phillies for their prospect bats that they have, then there's still an avenue to get those hitters. And why am I discussing it? Well, ESPN had this right up in their analysis. So this is what they wrote up. Why the White Sox took Smith here. The big question here is if the White Sox will end up regretting making this pick with Jack Caglianone still on the board. The White Sox have had a lot of success going with left-handed starting pitching in the draft lately. Garrett Crochet and Noah Schultz. And Smith is a lefty with nasty stuff, namely a wicked slider who should move quickly through the minors. The Arkansas ace has drawn comparisons to Carlos Rodon, and even some evaluators mentioning Chris Sale. And he has frontline starter upside if it all comes together. So I know it's ESPN, but they carried the first round. They do tend to have people who take the draft seriously. I know Elijah Evans, who I had on Friday's show from Just Baseball Media and Future Sox. He his original thought after the pick was the Sox should have gone with a bat. And they had 3 bats they were connected to sitting right there. And one that might make them regret passing on him practically 14 to 17 games a year is Jack Caglianone, the Florida slugger who was deeply tied to the Sox. A lot of mocks had him going to the Sox. He goes number 6 to the Royals. So he's going to be on a division rival. But I think ESPN's Jesse Rogers put it perfectly about why the Sox probably passed on him. Here's what he wrote. In their press release announcing Hagen Smith as their pick at number 5, the White Sox mentioned their recent success in drafting left-handed pitchers. But that shouldn't trump taking a player at another position, and passing up on Jack Caglianone seems like a mistake. Perhaps they've been scared off of college hitters as Golden Spikes winner Andrew Vaughn hasn't popped for them, while another Spikes winner, Andrew Benintendi, has struggled mightily as well. Having said all that, Smith could be as effective as a righty Burns, who was taken at number 2 overall. It was a head scratch for a moment, but that's it. All right, excuse me about that. I just popped in a hall, so if you keep hearing that, I'm just trying to make sure I don't hack up a lung here. But I keep saying, I think taking a first baseman high in the draft is bad process. And by picking Smith, the Sox have established a process. They like big left-handers with a 3-corner arm delivery who can throw hard. Again, I apologize. This cold is just killing me here. But the draft should be about drafting traits, and the Sox have identified those traits that they like. Hold on one second. They like big left-handed throwers, and they like shortstops. And honestly, your first-round picks should be up the middle. Catcher, pitcher, shortstop, center fielder. One moment. I'm sorry, guys. I'm here for you. Trying to break down this draft for you. It was a very pivotal draft. But you definitely want a catcher for a power hitter and the positional versatility, because if they don't work out there, you move them to the first or outfield. Pitching is self-explanatory. Shortstop and center fielder, they're the best athletes. They're the best athletes. They can be moved to other positions if they don't have the range to play the position at the next level or are blocked. And guess what? The Sox took a shortstop and another lefty in the second round that I'll get to in the next segment. But it's as if the Sox are understanding how to draft for the modern game and the players needed to put together a roster that can play it. However, shortstop Connor Griffin, he has a ton of potential, and the Sox were linked to him. I know James Fox from Future Sox, who I had on the show on last Thursday, he was saying he would have been a great fit for the Sox. Gatorade National Player of the Year, has all the tools and the athleticism to be a stud. He went number 9 to the Pirates. Probably had the highest ceiling in the draft, and sometimes you do want the Sox to go for a high ceiling player. And that is the only knock that I can think of, is they tend to go with a player who has a high floor, but his ceiling is like this, not that, JJ Weatherholt, he was a shortstop out of West Virginia with another outside hope I know that James had. He was hoping the Sox would drop, or he was hoping that it would drop to the Sox. Excuse me one moment. Again, if you're watching the second segment and wondering on YouTube why there's some cuts, I've had to hit pause a few times to basically hack up a lung. I apologize again. But he did drop, as he was discussed to be the number 1 overall pick. He goes to number 7 to the Cardinals. And look, who knows if any of these guys are going to pan out? This is all projections. Teams are able to make better projections now since they can actually see these prospects more with all the events that they have and all the games that they can now attend. And when you're doing a projection, you got to have a good process in terms of what you're looking for. And if the Sox determine that they like left-handed flamethrowers, shortstops, and right-handed pitchers with high upside, but drop because they're coming off of injuries like Peyton Pallett, fine. It's finally a plan. But still, if you're a diehard, you got to hope Smith continues to own Caglione at the big leagues. But let's get into how the Sox followed their draft process with their second-round picks next. Locked On White Sox. The Chicago White Sox might be terrible this season, but it's still professional baseball being played at Guaranteed Rate Field. And the end of the month, we'll have the first place Seattle Mariners in town. You still have the Chicago Cubs and the New York Yankees coming to the South Side August 9th through the 14th. Crosstown rivalry is still fun to watch live, and the Yankees are always an attraction. And there are plenty of reasons to still catch a game live. And that is why, if you want to take in a game, use the Game Time app. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch, and with killer last-minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guaranteed, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. They got zone deals, save even more when you choose the section, and let Game Time choose the seats. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And it's the All-Star break for the White Sox. They won't be back in action until this Friday against the Kansas City Royals. First pitch on the 19th is at 7:10 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I really want to thank you guys for being patient with me as I just battle this plague that I've been infected with. I woke up Saturday and my ear was just pounding. I'm like, I got to get to urgent care. And I went there and they're like, yeah, you have a perforated eardrum. They've given me some antibiotics. But this morning I have been just, if you've heard, hacking up a lung. And if you're like, why is the second segment a little choppy? I've had to hit the pause button a few times for some inside baseball to basically cough. So I really appreciate you guys sticking with me. Love you everydayers. Hope you enjoyed the draft preview that I had. Got some fun stuff hopefully scheduled for you in the next upcoming weeks. Now, the Sox did something smart in the second round. That is, they drafted 2 prep players, and they used their area code team to find them. They used a way to find players. It's amazing. Sox took prep shortstop Caleb Bonemer. Hopefully I didn't butcher his name. With the 43rd pick. And then prep left-handed pitcher Blake Larson at number 68. And this continues a trend that the Sox might finally be shaking off the mistakes of the past and actually using modern methods to identify players and then hopefully develop them. Now, James Fox from Future Sox, he was on the show the other day, and he explained what an area code teams are. But it's a great way to find prep players instead of going the old school way of show up to the school, and if they're great that day, they're a stud. That's it. That's what they are. Even though you saw one day against probably a high school pitcher that shouldn't even get a JUCO offer. And that has happened to the Sox before. The Sox were smart by drafting another shortstop. Keep adding shortstops and center fielders if you're going to go with position players and catcher. And also they went with a prep pitcher, which is and a prep shortstop, which is nice because gives the Sox a chance to get a player to the big leagues when they're actually like still in their early 20s and not say near the 30s, like what it seemed like the team was doing in the past. It always seemed like a young prospect for the White Sox for them was like 27. But really, that should be when they're entering their prime. Jim Margulis of Sox Machine had an excellent write-up on Bonemer. Basically pointed out that he was the Michigan Gatorade Player of the Year. Although he did point out that the Athletics' Keith Law didn't seem too impressed by him. Law thinks Bonemer should go to Virginia where he has a commitment. But what matters is what the White Sox think, and this is what Mike Shirley told reporters from MLB.com Scott Merkin. Quote, Caleb, from the first time he stepped on the main stage of the circuit last summer, he's shown us dynamic tools, 5 tools, hit, and power, and he's one of the best players on the circuit last year. Our scouts were super excited about him, end quote. And Shirley wants the right-handed hitter who's going to be 19 in October to obviously start his pro career at shortstop. This is, again, what he said. Quote, we want to send him out as a shortstop and exhaust every avenue to keep him at that position. Up the middle of the field type of player with bad ability. Those are the type of profiles we want to try to continue to attack. I'm sorry. The Sox sound like a modern organization. This is why I'm talking about the draft instead of talking about the Sox losing 71 games. They actually are starting to realize we should draft up the middle. Bonemer's rank, Baseball Prospectus had him as the 26th, Baseball America 36, ESPN 40, Sox Machine, who compiled all the rankings and put it into a nice write-up, 44, Keith Law, 56, MLB Pipeline 71. I also suggest that you check out FutureSox.net for their write-ups, and I know Sox on 35th has some good write-ups too. But Bonemer is going to have to decide if he will sign or not. But this little nugget from Merkin's piece indicates maybe the Sox will overslot him. Here's what he wrote. Well, the White Sox had to extend themselves a little bit with regards to their $14 million bonus pool. Shirley was pleased with the day's work. Quote, it was a little tricky right now as you navigate the whole bonus pool situation. There are a lot of people with elevated numbers, and I have a little bit of a fight. We had to work, but we got 3 good pieces we wanted. We're excited, end quote. And usually you're not going to draft a player unless you know that you're going to probably sign him. It just means that what Shirley's indicating is they're going to probably have to pony up. Larson has already said he is signing with the White Sox. He told the Des Moines Register this, quote, I'm pumped. There's no better feeling. It's been a dream of mine since day one going to IMG. It was always in my head that this was the plan, and now it's actually happening. And I know I'm going to at least get 1.4, end quote. All right, so that's definitely the Sox because I think the slot was 1.2 for that. So they're obviously going over. And that makes me think, I wonder if they're going to go with college players today. You can go to SoxMachine.com. They've got a lot to say about Larson's game. Basically, his velocity is going to be around 93. Although Baseball America says he can get to 96, and it's not out of the question that he can get to 100. They did point this out from Baseball America. This was Jim Margulis. He has a high-effort delivery with a lot of moving parts, including a high leg kick, a sharp stabbing action in the back of his arm stroke, and a violent finishing, including a head whack and a hard fall off to the third base side. So it looks like it's going to be painful to watch him on the mound, just how he does that. But again, they got a pitching guru. And the guy struck out 71 hitters for the IMG national team in 42 and a third innings. Brian Bannister apparently is very excited about him, and Brian Bannister I trust. So it kind of looks like the Sox actually had a good draft. Even if we don't agree with the names, they actually have followed a good process, and they are starting to act like a modern day baseball franchise. So for one day, let's just enjoy it. That wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. But before I go, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I'll be back tomorrow to discuss how bleak or better things might be after the All-Star break. I'm also working on doing a crossover this week with Locked On Yankees, maybe do some mock trading and getting CHGO's Vinny Duber on the show, possibly even for tomorrow. So we'll see. But I've got some exciting stuff planned for this week and also at the end of or at the beginning of August. So feel free to leave comments about today's show, about the Sox possibly drafting Crochet's replacement. Are they going to regret passing on some prospects? And what are they getting in their second round picks? You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at ToddJDub, or at Locked On Sox, or email me at LockedOnWhiteSox@gmail.com. Have a great day. I will see you tomorrow.